Good morning to everyone, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you all. My name is Melissa Arias, and I work as Regional Jaguar Coordinator for the Amazon at WWF. And I'm here actually to present my PhD research, though, which I conducted a few years ago at this university, which was on the illegal trade in jaguars and its links to multiple drivers, including human-wildlife conflict. And this research was possible thanks to the support of several co-authors, including Amy, Paola, Pamela, Nuno, Jenny, and E.J. Miller-Gunn, my supervisor. Okay, so I would like to start by saying that jaguar trade has a long history, and there is a lot of evidence that jaguars were traded by indigenous civilizations even before in pre-colonial times, and carried these body parts of jaguars across vast distances. So this just goes to show that jaguars were important in the culture and historical symbolism and values of indigenous communities since a really long time, and this matters for today's reality as well. And then through most of the 20th century, jaguars were traded extensively at commercial scales for the fashion industry in North America and Europe. And this is also an important context because a lot of the people that were employed and had their livelihoods in the fur trade are still alive today. And so this trade did not stop until CITES regulations came into force in 1975. But now there's a new historical moment for jaguar trade in Latin America because there's been several seizures of jaguar parts, especially teeth, that have been made in the past few years across the continent, but particularly in Bolivia. And these seizures, some of them have been linked to demand from Chinese consumers. And so there's a belief that this could be associated with the trade in other big cats like tigers. So through my research, my goal was to improve our scientific knowledge about this threat to jaguars so that we can make better informed decisions about how to address it. And I worked in two main study areas and used two methodological approaches, but I'm going to speak mainly about my work in Bolivia, which was based on household surveys with over 1,000 people from 36 communities in the Amazon and Pampas regions of the Amazon in Bolivia. And because I was working with an illegal behavior and a potentially sensitive behavior, I used the ballot box method, which essentially allows participants to respond to whether they have killed or traded jaguars in a secret and private way so that they don't self-incriminate. And the results were quite alarming and surprising in terms of the high prevalences of these behaviors. So as you can see, nearly half of a random sample of rural villagers had possessed jaguar body parts in the past 5 years. And 24% have been recruited by other people to kill jaguars. 19% had killed jaguars themselves. 16% had recruited others to kill. 15% had sold jaguar body parts, and 13% had bought jaguar body parts. So these numbers really came to bring the threat of poaching and illegal trafficking to the forefront, because for a long time we thought that jaguars were just affected by habitat loss, but this really served to put them back in the agenda for trade. And through these values, I was able to also conduct an analysis on what are the types of actors involved in the trade. And I categorized them as non-commercial, commercial, and messenger actors. So non-commercial actors were people who had come into the possession of jaguar body parts because somebody gifted it to them or passed it along. So they were not directly involved in commercial transactions. Or also people who had killed jaguars in the context of conflict and retaliation, and they just wanted to get rid of the problem and not really to extract any body parts or sell or gain any other benefits. Commercial actors were actually the ones who were involved in killing or trading jaguar body parts themselves, and in particular the killing trader group over there were a particular focus because they were people who were actively going after jaguars to be able to trade and sell their body parts and using methods specifically targeted to jaguars. And messengers were people who just passed along the opportunities when it came, so they didn't personally trade or kill, but they just passed along the message. And these were, for instance, people who were the local village store owners, because they were a point of contact between traders coming into the communities and asking for parts and then linking them to the hunters. So we also looked at what were the drivers behind this threat, and the media had placed a big focus on the seizures linked to Chinese demand, but actually through the surveys we realized that a lot of the market was actually domestically driven, and that many people were involved in the demand for Jaguar parts locally within communities. And this is because Jaguar body parts have a lot of local uses. So for example, the skins you can see are used as furniture or home decoration. They can also be turned into accessories like belts, wallets, or purses. The fat is used as medicine to treat a wide variety of diseases. And also they are kept as amulets for spiritual protection and other cultural beliefs. But we also did find evidence of international demand for these parts, as there were interactions between community members and foreign traders. Some were from Chinese descent, but it was also interesting to find that the international or foreign demand was actually much more complex than that, and included also traders that were European or North American, who came for tourism and bought the parts as souvenirs, or people from neighboring countries who purchased the items as materials to develop crafts and different arts. So the existence of these markets was definitely the main driver of the trade, but there were also other drivers, and one of them was, of course, human-wildlife conflict. And 25% of participants had experienced conflict themselves in the context of livestock depredation or also domestic pets depredation, like dogs. But there were also cases of negative encounters with jaguars, aggressive encounters or attacks that also, together with conflict, led to these very negative perceptions of jaguars, which meant that people were really happy to have jaguars killed and thought that the commerce and trade was a good thing. There was also a vast lack of awareness about the laws that protect jaguars in the country, reaching 85% of the sample, and that's why the behavior was not sensitive at all. And there were also some socioeconomic factors that also played into the trade. For instance, income was one of them, as people with lower incomes were also more likely to engage in the trade. And the links between conflict and trade were there. So, for instance, the fact that people had ranching livelihoods and that they had experienced depredation events led to higher odds of killing jaguars and possessing jaguar body parts. But interestingly, they were not the strongest predictors of selling and buying jaguar body parts. So there was that difference in the level of impact that they had. And at the same time, 1/3 of the killing traders had experienced jaguar body part, human-jaguar conflict, but the other 2/3 found the jaguar body parts and from other means, essentially. So the message here is that conflict and trade are related, and they should be approached together, but also they are separate behaviors that need their own holistic and multifaceted interventions. So just very quickly, I will put in my WWF hat to mention some of the work that we are doing to address these issues. So we have a regional jaguar strategy that includes human-jaguar conflict and jaguar trafficking as one of its core pillars, in addition to the other ones that you can see here. And this strategy is applied in 15 different jaguar priority landscapes all across the continent. And human-jaguar coexistence is a big part of our work, and we work with farmers and ranchers to implement a program of schools for ranchers. And these programs provide training to ranchers on how to prevent depredation events, but more importantly, they provide training on how to increase their productivity and cattle safety and health. And this delivers direct benefits to their incomes. So they really accept and like this program because they see it as a program for their benefits and for their livelihoods, and not so much about the jaguar or the beautiful predators that they hate. We are also working to create conflict response units with local authorities so that they can be in the right place at the right time when the conflicts happen to avoid retaliation. And we're also active in the policy side, creating national policies, documents, coexistence strategies, protocols for response so that people can know how to address these issues when they happen. And just want to thank all the wonderful supporters and donors that helped me with my research. And thank you all for your attention.
Right, fantastic, right on time. We have a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes for questions. And yeah, please use them because Melissa is going to leave us straight after us, so there is no space for questions after the whole session for her. Right, the gentleman over there.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you for your presentation.
Sorry, you need to speak on your mic for recording purposes.
Yes. Sorry. Is this on? Can you hear me? Thank you for your presentation today. We and our partners have extensive information that the trade in jaguar parts is also associated with narco trafficking and trafficking and other things. I'm kind of curious as to what evidence you may or may not have found during your own research and surveys of this, and in particular, ideas of people from outside the communities also being hired to kill jaguars in certain areas and therefore may not have been present in those communities during the times of surveys, for example. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I personally did not encounter any links in this study sites in particular, any links to organized crime and drug-related crimes. But I think sometimes we try to say like, oh, jaguar trade is about Chinese demand, or it's about the drug trade, or it's about domestic demand. And it's not either or. They're all things that are happening simultaneously in different places and taking advantage of each other. So it's possible that all of these exist. And certainly this is just a snapshot of a situation that I encountered when I was doing the questions and the research. But it's also, illegal wildlife trade is very dynamic. It changes all the time. It changes to enforcement reactions from police and authorities. There were changes in the methods that were used to trade while I was there conducting the surveys as well. So I think it's really important to keep track continuously over time and really explore all these different informations that are appearing.
Thank you for your presentation. I also used to be a former panda, but currently I'm with IUCN and I coordinate the IUCN's tiger conservation program. So you're talking about the trade link and the majority of this going to Chinese market. I would like to know that how you track this link. Do you work with traffic, Interpol like this? Because there are a lot of seizures in Asia. For example, they do a lot of seizures in Thailand. And then it comes in the media, but I haven't heard of these jaguar trades going on, so I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no, good question. So the seizures that had been made in Bolivia, their links to China were because they were in shipments going to China, so that is how we knew that there was some market happening. And also in the communities that I surveyed, there were people of Chinese descent entering the villages and asking for body parts. So there was a clear demand and connection. And later in other work I've done on illegal jaguar trade, there's been more seizures that are happening in several countries, not just China, but in Europe and North America and so on. So it's really an international trade, but it's also largely a domestic trade. There's these both angles of it. But on the Chinese side, there's still a lot more for us to learn. We still don't know what is happening when the parts enter the markets. Where do they go? Are they replacing tiger body parts? This is not clear yet because we have not seen the markets on that side and how they work so much. So it's an assumption, it's a hypothesis that they may be coming into the same markets for other big cats, but we still need to understand that a lot more.
Okay, one very short question.
Hello, Hello, you hear me? Oh. I was working on project of Puma and Jaguar program a few years ago, and we noticed among the threat on the wildlife, and I wanted to know if it was extended to jaguar, that every weekend people came inside forest or jungle to collect animals for their hobbies and just to collect for home or furniture and stuff like that. So is it something that you notice extended to jaguar or not?
Yeah, so I think it depends from place to place, but in this area there's a very big hunting culture. So people are constantly hunting for bushmeat, for subsistence, and obviously any animal that passes by is an opportunity not to be missed. And so jaguars, pumas enter that field as well. They are also consumed as bushmeat whenever the possibility arises. And there's also people that are coming to the villages to buy the body parts for building crafts and for different products. So I think there is a strong sense of killing jaguars when it happens.
Oh, great.